Hi guys, Jeff Westfall back with another Boxing for the Martial Arts video. Today I'm going to give you a breakdown of the left hook punch. But before I do, I think it's important that I give you a little physics lesson for those of you who aren't familiar with this bit of physics. There's no such thing as a curved punch. No matter what you might think, the hook punch is not a curved punch. It's a straight punch, in one sense at least. And that is, kinetic energy only flows in straight lines. Think of an old-fashioned sling, like David was supposed to have used against Goliath. It's just a string with a rock attached in the end in a little pouch. When I release that string, that rock doesn't keep going in a circle. It flies immediately in a straight line and continues. If you have water in a hose and that hose is coiled up on the ground, but you point that hose and turn it on, even though that water just went through a bunch of circular paths, when it comes out straight. So while there is no such thing as a curved punch, there are curved routes for points of delivery. Now that's kind of confusing sounding, so I'll explain. If you're a football fan, think of a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes. When he doesn't want to release his pass right from here, right from his center, because he thinks it might get blocked, he goes sidearm and reaches out this way and throws it. Even though that path is going to travel a pretty straight line, that pass is going to travel a pretty straight line, he releases it from a point that's away from his center. That's what a hook punch is. A hook punch, when I release it, it travels a very short distance in a straight line. Let me grab a stick here. This is my forearm. I sort of showed you this on the video entitled Punching is Not Pushing, It's Throwing. And what you're throwing when you're punching is this little spear or this stick made out that goes from your elbow to your fist, and it hits the target. Well, when I release a hook punch, when I snap my shoulder at the right moment, this flies a very short distance, pop, and hits the target. Now, why does all this make any difference? Why do I need to explain this to you? Here's the reason. Because a lot of people, in thinking that a hook punch is a curved technique, think they can add power to it by continuing to flow in a curved line after they hit, by following through in a curved fashion. That does nothing to help your hook punch. Once you have released it, truly released it, and the kinetic energy goes out into the opponent, your next job is to restructure yourself, maybe back in your structure, in your stance, or in a new one, but not try to add more to the punch by following through in any kind of circular fashion. When you hit a mitt, a focus mitt, you try to penetrate with that hook a few inches in and then pull it back out. The analogy I often use with my students is a hook punch, and for that matter, any other curved punch like an overhand or an uppercut, should be thought of as stabbing, and then you're retracting, you're pulling it back out. Like stabbing an ice pick or a knife into something and pulling it back out, rather than trying to rip through the object that you're hitting. So when I hit with the hook punch, I retract. The moment of contact and I pop the shoulder, I retract, and you'll notice that when I demonstrate the technique. So that's, I think, an important point to keep in mind when you're working on any curved punch, that all the part that feels curved is while you're holding it for delivery. You're waiting, you're putting it to a new launch point, pow, when you finally let go of it, it shoots out in a straight line. It shoots out such a short distance that you don't notice it perhaps, but it is going in a straight line when you release it. So let's go ahead and break it down. Let's get in our boxing structure. I'm going to show you in a southpaw structure here. I'm in my boxing structure, and for our basic left hook, meaning I'm not going to load my shoulders first, I'm going to deliver it right from where I am. What I'm going to do is start from the ground. My rear foot, and the heel should be up on my rear foot, the rear heel will go down. Now, there are a number of ways this can happen. This can go down after I turn it a little bit. It can go down as it is. You don't want to turn it this way and then put it down. That's exactly the opposite of what you want to do. So how do you know which of those to do? It depends on how flexible your structure is, your joints and your musculoskeletal structure in general. If you're very stiffly put together, you may not feel comfortable putting your heel down at the angle your foot is now and having any rotation here. It may not feel good. It may hurt somewhere. If that's the case, let this rear foot turn a little bit and then throw your hook. But let me give you a sideways view here. It's a bad idea for your balance to pivot this anywhere past this way, 90 degrees to the line, to the contested plane with the opponent. You start going past it to here, you're going to be all over the place with your balance. It's going to feel terrible. Because of this, if your structure can handle it, if it doesn't hurt, it's even more stable to put your heel down without having made it all the way to 90 like this. And I can't tell you what that angle is. That's a number you're going to have to determine for yourself and experiment with. Just don't wrench your knees, especially. The knees are what take the stress on this. So here I am back in my structure. I've decided how much I want to turn this foot before I put it down. And as that heel is coming down, this heel is coming up. As in all power punching, you don't have both heels down at the same time for any length of time. You don't have both heels up for any length of time. If I'm twisting this foot, this one's down. If I'm twisting this foot, this one comes down. So each leg has a role. You have a driving twisting leg, or the driver leg as I call it, and you've got a settled base leg. So you have a driver leg and a base leg. Well, on the left hook, you take what is normally in your boxing stance, the driver leg, your rear leg, and you convert it to a base leg. And that's what makes a left hook work. So now, here I am in the orthodox position. My left shoulder isn't as mobile as my right shoulder, so I'll actually get you in a southpaw position here. So when this comes down, that's the beginning of my body starting to rotate, the core starting to whirl like this. Now, as that happens, the hardest thing to teach you is what happens with this arm. Many people, it's obvious to me, for having taught the left hook for decades, many people think that they see the boxer pull the hand away before they throw the target. By away, I mean specifically away from their head or from their center. The opposite is actually true. Now, normally I don't want your hand to be on your head, right? I want it to be out here. But still think of it as being close to my head. I don't want to move my hand away from my head to prepare my punch. Now, I could hit a heavy bag like that and it would be fine. But obviously, this is telling something to my opponent, and it's moving a guard out of the way. Neither of those is desirable. Instead, what I do is, I move my head away from the hand. Now, when I do that, that creates a stretching effect like this across my shoulder joint. That's like elastic energy being stored into a bow as you pull the string, being stored and being ready to be released. So I'm storing elastic energy by doing this. I sometimes will hold my student's wrist and say, do everything for the hook, for the beginning of the hook punch, except move this arm. Just turn and feel that stretch across here. Now there's a certain amount of that stretch that you can take and a certain amount that's not good for you. You have to figure that out on your own. I'm not there to help you. But as that stretch is getting near its max, then I let the next part of the punch happen. The next part of the punch is allowing this line to snap into proper alignment so that my stick, let me get back to my stick here. I don't want my stick to hit the target at an angle like this. I want it to hit straight. And this is the reason that a lot of people make another mistake. They get their hook punch ready like this. They get it horizontal too early. I want to keep it vertical through most of this stretching motion that I already described to you. But then just as I release it, it pops into alignment and snaps into the target. This way. So you see the stretch and what I call the deployment snap, which is I deploy the stick at the correct angle and then pop my shoulder. I don't do anything with my arm from the standpoint of trying to make my arm. I don't use my triceps to extend my arm. Another common mistake is doing this. Your arm's job is mostly to make a shape and a structure and to allow you to store the energy and to just be there as you hit by turning your core. If you want to think about hitting harder, don't think about doing anything with your arm. Think about hitting an imaginary target with your shoulder. I will sometimes hold a mitt and have right here and have my student pop his shoulder into that mitt as hard as he can. That's where you want to feel your power. how hard you move your shoulder into that punch. One advantage of the hook punch is you've already got your guard in position. You don't have to do any switching like you do, whoop, I dropped my microphone, like you do on a right cross. So your guard hand is already where you want it to be. You don't really need to do anything elaborate with that, other than remember to keep the elbow in. Then, of course, what's important is how you recover. So I'm in my boxing structure, I throw the hook, depends on what I'm going to do next. I may recover the simplest way, which is to drop that elbow back down and to rotate back to my structure, very often going into another punch. I could also throw my technique and weave my head under to come to a different position. There are different things I could do. I could also throw my technique and get out and extend the range for whatever reason. That would be unusual, but I can visualize scenarios where that might be something you want to do. But for basics, there and back. And that's a breakdown of your basic left hook with my right arm. I hope you found this useful. Take care, and I'll see you next time for Boxing for the Martial Arts.